first of all, that I believe that the basic strong fundamentals of our economy that existed pre-COVID are still there. And once we can get everybody vaccinated and we can get this pandemic behind us, I believe that we will once again return to a robust and strong economy. But in order for all people, all Chattanoogans to participate in that recovery, I think we're going to have to do some things. We're going to have to support people. There are already small businesses that have gone under. There are people who have lost their jobs. And we just need to give everybody a pass because this pandemic was no one's fault. These bad things did not happen because people were reckless or irresponsible. So one of the things I want to do is I want to meet with our banks and our financial institutions and work out a plan so that everyone who has been harmed through no fault of their own can be given a second chance. So if you are a business and you went under and you've suffered terrible losses, well, I think we can find a path to recovery for you. If you are an individual or a family and your credit has been ruined and you've suffered hardship, well, I think that we can help you. How can we help? Well, first of all, I believe that the Biden administration and this new Congress will in fact provide more relief to cities across the country. And I think that we can use that relief to fuel our recovery. But even if that doesn't happen, we're sitting here in Chattanooga with a $70-something million rainy day fund. If a pandemic doesn't qualify as a rainy day, I don't know what does. So as mayor, I certainly would be willing to borrow from the rainy day fund to assist small business and to assist families in the recovery, because I think that's what we're going to have to do.
I think that the budget as it is, it really isn't a balanced budget. And why I say that is, I think one size doesn't necessarily fit all. I think that taxes, fees, and fines should be based on a person's income. You know, it's just like, well, I've read many books. The Bible is one of my favorite books, and one of my favorite scriptures I've read is, "To whom much is given, much will be required." So I think people that are making $300,000 or more a year, they ought to pay a little bit more in taxes. They ought to pay a little bit more in fines and fees. They can afford it. Someone who's just making like $800 a month, they shouldn't be held to the same standard. Their tax should be lower. Their fines, their fees should be lower. And so that's what I'm all about. Equity. That's what I'm looking for. Equity in government. Equity that's probably the number one issue for me. And then after that would be mandatory mask wearing with fines. I mean, in Tennessee, if you don't wear a seatbelt, you get a $10 or $20 fine. Not so with people not wearing a mask. I see 10% of people going into supermarkets and service stations refusing to wear a mask. They'll have one on when they get in, and then after they're in, they take it off. You know, it only takes one person that has COVID to infect an entire store, get people sick, and kill people. It's the only crime I know of where you can get away with murder. And the authorities are allowing it to happen. It's very sad.
First, we need to have budgets or audits that actually reflect the budgets. We need to look at where we're losing the funding at or our money at, where funding can be reallocated to help booster the economy as well. I think we need to look at maybe looking outside the box at building up our economy, looking at a gift economy is what they call there's an aspect called a gift economy. There's also other economic things that we can look into to spur like micro grants programs and things like that. I think the state has programs where, you know, the city can apply for the grants, and basically they're a pass through to pass the money off to other organizations or agencies. And you know, we need to, as a city, we need to look at recouping from this COVID-19 pandemic as well. You know, a lot of the money we receive is from the tourist industry, so maybe we have to look at seeing ways of, you know, making up that loss here on a local level, maybe investing more into our local economy, investing in local people, starting up more local businesses, and, you know, and spurring that entrepreneurship that I think could fill the void of our economy as well.
As mayor, I will bring voices to the table to make sure that the funds get allocated to where they're needed. And I will de-escalate funds from organizations and firms that's been getting tax cuts and tax breaks for the past years from now. So yes, I will, it will be funds available for them.
I'm the only candidate that's running that's actually worked on a budget for the city. I've certainly been on the senior team with Mayor Burke and working with council, the only one that's been through that process. So I understand what it's like to confront challenges and having really a lot of interests that we want to try to address. This is unprecedented in many ways, right? This is us trying to make sure that we address not only issues related to keeping people in their homes, but also making sure our employees are taken care of. So this, for me, is not just though a math exercise. It's about those interests that I just mentioned, right? It is an opportunity also to look at it from a place of equity. And if we're doing it that way, if we're doing it from a lens of equity, we know that we're going to touch more people, even touching our employees. And lastly, what I would say is, you know, our BFO process, which I was a part of, the budgeting for outcomes process, it provides for transparency, it provides for accountability, but it also provides for an opportunity to be more innovative. And if we can be more innovative, we can look for more efficiencies and cost savings that I think will help us address some of these shortfall.
I've got a tremendous amount of experience managing large budgets and multi-million-dollar budgets in multiple businesses. Yeah, I've taught new venture creation at UTC as well, so I get all sides of it, and I know how to manage a budget. I know how to manage a budget well. It's been 16 years since we had a mayor with a small business background or business background at all. And I would emphasize that those estimates are probably wrong. All the data indicates that sales taxes are actually up, and collections through the first half of this fiscal year actually show, you know, look, there's some problems depending on where you land on open versus closed with how things have gone. But the fact of the matter is our sales tax collections aren't down. And I think a lot of those projections were a little too dire. So I'm quite hopeful that we can accomplish a lot of our budget priorities with the current budget.
That's a difficult thing that I'm going to have to adjust. But see, this is what I'm trying to get on. We have a year roughly before this comes to tuition, okay? Then we're going to have to really address it. And I got that year to really promote and get this thing off the ground, okay? So that would be in our favor. And, you know, I think that we can probably get something out of somewhere else, wiggle it in there, but really focus on the people that really are in need and address those issues. I don't want to forget about anybody. I'm trying to get revenue for these programs. And I'm afraid that's the whole problem that we're going to do is we're going to be running out of money for this kind of thing. So there's a lot of people that needs our services. There's people out here that they can't help themselves, and they need to be our veterans, people, the homeless people, you know, people with housing issues and stuff like that. It's just it's a big scale project what I'm talking about doing, but we can do it, and I have the skill set to do it.
Human life and health and well-being must be forward. If anything needs to be cut, that will never be, because the money belongs to the people of Chattanooga, i.e. the taxpayer. So we must continue to support our people when it comes to housing assistance, food assistance, rental assistance, and human needs. Also, of course, the federal government is supposed to be working on different aid packages to replenish that. So working closely with our federal government and our lawmakers to make sure we get our fair share of any relief money that's coming to the federal government. Because of the previous aid packages, we're supposed to include state and local government. So we need to work closely with our federal officials to make sure whatever funds are available, that we're able to receive those as well.
Well, I'm the only candidate that is making a mandate for every first responder to get a $10,000 annual salary. We're supposed to have 500 cops right now. We've got 462. So when you do the math, that's $4,620,000 just for the police alone. And then every firefighter is going to get the money as well. So we have 40% of city employees are being paid below the federal poverty line. That is outrageous. If I have to raise taxes, and that's what we're going to do, because we need every person that works for the city and every person in our city in general to not be living in poverty. That's unacceptable. Now, the plastic bag tax, we're estimating that we're going to be able to hopefully pay for that pay increase with the plastic bag tax. I want this, again, this is for the environment too. We want people to use the reusable canvas bags, but if they're going to get a plastic bag, then they're going to pay the 10-cent tax. Streamlining. There's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. $6 million of LED lights went missing. We're going to cut out the fraud, waste, and abuse in the budget. We're going to streamline it. We're going to reprioritize where we need it. I am not going to be defunding the police, but we are going to be changing the culture in the police department. And by giving the pay increase, it's going to help us with recruitment and retention. Why now? This is going to cost more money in the short term, but save more money in the long term, because if officers are behaving better and they're happier, it's going to reduce our civil litigation, our misconduct lawsuits. And when they come into and go to an expensive academy and then leave to the state or the county after 2 years, it's wasting a lot of our resources on the expensive academy. So to answer your question in short, we're going to streamline the budget. I believe in full participatory budgeting where we have neighborhood associations, city council members sit down and meet with me. I'm not going to be the type of mayor that's a king or a dictator. We're going to sit down and have full community participation, because what we do and how we budget things in District 1 is going to be completely different how we budget things in District 8. This isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. So it boils down to transparency. It's going to be fully transparent and have full participation. Also, I'm the only candidate that's going to sacrifice most of my mayoral salary. I'm only going to take a $34,000 salary of a rookie cop. The remaining $128,000 of my salary is going to go directly and transparently to poor people. So $128,000 times 4 is $512,000. I've come out of pocket before in Chattanooga to buy beds for kids that were sleeping in public housing on the floor, on the mattresses. And this is unacceptable. The city had beds up in Cleveland, Tennessee, but they didn't have any transportation. They wouldn't let me haul the beds down because I didn't have the proper city license. This bureaucratic red tape that's going on, that's hindering people and preventing good people from being helped, we're going to slice through it like a hot knife through butter.
How do we actually realign priorities and look at what the priorities are, and how do we actually recruit additional investment in the city? So we're going to go in and take just a hard look, and it will be a hard budget year, to make sure that we have set high priorities, and we're looking at what do we need to do to support first responders, what do we need to do to jumpstart some of the infrastructure issues that we have. We will be getting some funds, I am sure, from the federal government. How do we make sure that we are aligned and we advocate for our fair share? And we're prepared to do that. Working with the state to make sure, again, we are in queue for a fair share of those dollars too. So I think we've got to look at all opportunities, and then how we actually maybe can use public-private funds to stopgap some of the issues.
I was fortunate in a way to be sitting on the desk of a multi-million-dollar operation in 2008 when the markets collapsed. And I was working for a Fortune 200 company. They didn't want to hear anything but how you're going to get it done. So just that whole thing I shared about uniting the employees, we as a group united together. We looked for every way we could cut costs, improve efficiency, and we came through it as a shining star. I have dug through the budgets, and I am confident that there are layer after layer of waste in there. So there's no doubt. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, But with the team that's in place already and other dedicated professionals that'll come on board with me, we're going to do some cost cutting and some streamlining and create an efficient operation. And I think that the future, we're about to see a rebound like we've never seen. The people have cabin fever. We're all sick of being locked up, and I'm confident COVID will be in our rearview mirror soon, and we're going to see our economy explode like never before.
Well, we've got to look at what do a business do when there is some type of historical pandemic like we see now. So I look back and I researched, what did the country do? First of all, we got more creative with ways to generate jobs because we have got to create job opportunities. We've got to increase the wages so that people can spend in your local economy. If people are not working, they're not spending. So I'm going to have a robust plan to get more businesses in this community, especially in our marginalized community, and also help sustain the businesses that are there. We have people that are in business now closing their doors because the opportunities for people to buy, to purchase, and do business with them is leaving. So we've got to create those opportunities again. And there are so many other opportunities that Chattanooga can offer this world in terms of coming here. I know tourism is all but stopped. I know that. But we have other ways of generating income. For example, when you look into housing, we have a high percentage of renters, especially in our marginalized communities. We need to convert renters to homeowners so that we can get that tax base of the taxes from those homes that would ordinarily, for example, not even be habitable. Some of these houses are just sitting there. Nobody's in them. We need to have people in there because we know, even with the Section 8 vouchers, that people don't have a place to live. So they're sharing homes with other people. We've got to get every lot in Chattanooga with a home on it, and every vacant home, we've got to get them occupied so we can continue to generate income. We need to get rid of slumlords so that we can get people in those houses that will be responsible and that will turn our communities into more beautiful communities. When you drive through certain communities, you know, you've seen it, the boarded up abandoned homes, absentee landlords. We've got to do something and be really strict and enforce our policies as it relates to these houses. So we've done it before. We did heavy code enforcement to force people to either fix their houses up or tear them down. We're not going to tear them down if we can help them. If we can help them. So we know that there's a Community Reinvestment Act. I'm going to be looking very closely into where these funds have been going in our community. I want to do a detailed analysis of the budget. I want an audit of the budget so that we can see where this money has gone, because we've gotten so much money over the past decades, and we still have the same problem. In fact, they've gotten worse. We've gotten homelessness has gotten worse. Why has homelessness gotten worse when we've gotten more money into this community for homelessness? So we're going to look at what really is going on behind the scenes and where this money is leaving our economy and not fixing our problems. That's number one. So economic development, spurring on new business growth is going to be a priority so that we can in turn bring more money into our economy. We're not going to be able to trust tourism with that 20 or 30% that we normally get. Tourism is not going to be there like it has been in the past. So we've got to get creative.
When you look at families in poverty, when you look at households in poverty, you will see that 2/3 of all households in poverty are headed by single women. And we have a 35% child poverty rate in Chattanooga. And again, these are figures that are pre-COVID. I'm sure that today they are much worse. So one of the things that we need to do, regardless of the pandemic, is we've got to come to the rescue of single moms and single dads, for that matter, too, their kids and families. That's where the poverty is. That's where the pain is. That's where it's always been. We just ripped the Band-Aid off of it during the past year to better expose it. But we've never had a mayor who said, I want to be the champion for single moms, their kids and families. And so that's who I want to be. That's the first thing that we have to do. Then related to that, we've got to prop up small business. We've spent a lot of time chasing Fortune, 500 companies, and we've done a fairly good job at it. We have Volkswagen, we have Amazon here, but we put those companies out at Enterprise South. I mean, practically in Ottawa. We haven't created jobs in the inner city where people who need the jobs the most live. So we've got to do things to create jobs closer to the urban core. So that's why I want to recruit the 100 largest African-American owned companies, the 100 largest Latino owned companies, and the 100 largest women owned companies to Chattanooga. By traditional recruiting metrics, those are all deemed to be too small to be recruited. But can you imagine what it would do to the trajectory of East Chattanooga or Alton Park if we put a $250 million African-American owned company right smack dab in the heart of those communities? It would be a pretty spectacular thing. And then finally, as I've said, I think it's time to tap into the city's rainy day fund, because a pandemic should certainly qualify as a rainy day. And as mayor, I will borrow from that fund, of course, paying it back in the future, but I will borrow from that fund to take care of small business and to take care of families and people who have been hurt by this pandemic.
Back to whom much is given, much will be required. I think that especially in a period like this, when we've got like 3 crises going on, that those who have more should step up to the plate and even be willing to contribute to the government to help the government along. I definitely would not want to defund police. I think police is a good thing, but I think for nonviolent crimes, we need to have a crisis response team to address those type of problems rather than the police. But I want to boost the economy, and I definitely wouldn't want to cut any programs. From what I've seen, all the programs looks like they're very good, including the early childhood education. I would want to continue with that.
I know, there's programs that the city has in place. I think they do have, they have micro grant programs, and they have a program set up to help people who have been evicted and so forth. And I think the city needs to look at redeveloping or revamping some of these programs. A lot of times there's issues with people knowing even about the programs, and then there's a lack of funding attached to some of these programs that we do have. So we need to look at maybe, say, if you're a homeowner and you're looking towards losing your house because of COVID, maybe having a freeze on the property taxes, or halving the property taxes, so that the city's still bringing in a little bit of income, but trying to work with families to alleviate that issue. I think a lot of times too, the city tries to drive people to organizations that deal with certain issues and relating to those aspects. And when they do, though, a lot of times these organizations tend to take advantage of these people as well. And so we need to curb that issue too, because there's a lot of discrimination that goes on pertaining to these issues. So we need to look at, curbing the discrimination issue, curbing organizations having their hands so deeply into these issues, and looking for the city to find ways to alleviate them, whether it's through the Chattanooga Housing Authority or through the Economic Community Development Center. I know that the mask mandate issue that has put a big strain on a lot of businesses here locally as well. And, you know, the city should follow what OSHA has put out, because OSHA has put out guidelines, safety guidelines pertaining to what the CDC has put out on how to conduct business during this time. And so, you know, I think that the city could be a good steward by following what OSHA has put out for those standards, and, you know, just making sure that businesses, you know, encouraging them to do the same thing, but not doing stuff that's going to hinder businesses from being able to operate. I know we see a couple of local businesses right now talking about shutting down, and that's concerning to me as well.
There's a lot of programs and organizations that I would love to keep funding, CNE, and organizations that's really out here doing the work that's needed for the people. Especially for redlining and low income district families who's really suffering, as well as small business. For small business, as well as the districts that I will also fight for with the city councilmen, which be the redlining low income districts. I will make sure that funds are allocated to them specific organizations to do the work that they're doing, as well as we will cut these tax breaks and these kickbacks that these high corporations companies are getting. It's time for them to kick in. It's time to increase their taxes and give that money to the small income, and as well as Black owned and women owned businesses. I mean, it's time to kick in.
There is probably not a day that I don't talk to a Chattanoogan that is struggling in one way or another with because of COVID. And it could be that it's a small business that we read about that's closing, someone that has been laid off, or that grandparent, like my mom, can't get to her granddaughter, right? So we all are impacted in many ways by this pandemic. So I'm the only candidate that I think has released an actual COVID recovery plan. That actually details how we would address this issue. And I'll tell you, there are a couple of priorities in the framework that we would have in that plan. But namely, we're going to first create on day one a COVID recovery director. That person will be charged with looking at all of the programs that are out there, but also making sure we have the partnerships and collaboration across this community that's really needed. That means working with stakeholders like Hamilton County and Mayor Coppinger and his team, but also working with a lot of the foundations in the philanthropic community and nonprofits that are doing the work on the ground. What I envision with the programs that we would roll out to help support small businesses and individuals would be, one, making sure we're continuing to provide grants to our small businesses and look for even more opportunities through our industrial development board, or bringing, again, more of our foundation partners together to help us provide some additional sources and funding. Additionally, we've got to make sure we're keeping more people in their homes. So we would work with our partners again, and hopefully we'll see some relief that comes from the federal government to address this issue, that we can, again, provide rental assistance. But I think one of the things that we've got to also be very careful about or be mindful of is we have a lot of folks that have lost their jobs. So some of those jobs, we're being honest, may not come back. So what investments do we need to make for upskilling, reskilling those individuals for jobs that should be next for them, right? And so we've got to look for those opportunities, and that means working with the chamber, working with a lot of our partners at Chat State, using our community centers as a place, or YP centers as a place for retooling folks. That's how we're thinking about it. That's what we're looking at. In addition to the other work, of course, when it relates to childcare and supporting our small businesses in that aspect too, which are, by the way, great small businesses.
Look, again, getting back to crisis management and small business, I think what we have to do is maximize, our state and federal aid dollars. We're leaving some grant money on the table that we could be maximizing more, and I would create a one-stop shop for small businesses that would provide resources. Again, this is something I know very well, having started many small businesses myself, and and having taught at UTC, having a place there where small business can access state and federal resources to help with the PPP loans and other grants, and to connect them to resources to restart and get the loans they need, and any other resources they need to get rolling again, it would be my first priority.
I don't know if I would be adding any new programs right now. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to work with the small businesses people in a way where we can work with the county. It's going to have a joint venture right here. We're going to have to work with both to work this out here, and see what they can have to offer to the table. It just can't be relied on the city, because the business side of it is a part of the county too. They're about their thing. So I'd have to be getting together with Mayor Coppinger and sitting down and seeing what we can do with that. But that is a very important thing. And, we need to free up a lot of regulations for new start businesses. There's a lot of new start businesses does not even hit off the ground because of our regulations that we got to take care of. And that's not only speaking to COVID. Okay. So that's other issues that we need to address, building issues and that type of thing, that we need to really, it's cost prohibitive for a lot of small startup businesses. But we got to, I want to promote Black business districts down on the south side, Alton Park. Alton Park's got a lot of potential for manufacturing and small business startups, especially right down on 38th Street. Excellent location for it. East Chattanooga on Glass Street. There's not been that much of an issue going on with them. They're not, it's like their funds are dried up over there. They had something going, but there's either somebody's lost interest in it or something. I don't know what the deal is, but I want to look into that, because that's a historic area, and then we need to promote small businesses and then get it off the ground.
I guess cutting out the middleman and cutting out a lot of the restrictions and all the bureaucratic red tape. I think as mayor, I would be more hands-on, giving direct aid to people, because some cities actually just send out stimulus checks to citizens. So I would want to take a more direct role, because getting bogged down in agencies, phone calls, people seem to get lost in the mix, but also income restrictions and so on. So we don't put a lot of restrictions and ask a lot of questions of big business when we help them. So why are we doing the same to individuals? So streamlining the process, okay? And also, I also want to have an account of every business that got bailout money, that collects rents, that collects mortgages and stuff like that. Because how can they ask us for rent when they've already got assistance from the government? So I want a full audit of what aid these agencies and companies have gotten, so that they're dealing fairly and squarely with the general public. I think that's very important, is transparency when it comes to that. But I do want to streamline the process. I do want to work toward eviction moratoriums, and rent forgiveness and mortgage forgiveness, utility forgiveness, because if they're getting federal monies to compensate for loss of revenue, they should be giving us a break. And we need a mayor that comes from the working class that will hold them account and make them testify before the council how much money they have received in aid, so they're not double dipping from the public and the government.
First off, we're going to help with advocacy. My friend got a $10,000 PPE loan for his business, and I was talking about how he got it. He said it was very easy. But to a lot of people that aren't used to dealing with governments and the paperwork, it's a little bit intimidating to try to fill it out, and people are worried about having to pay it back. So I've been talking to small business owners about, okay, how much money are you going to have to pay back from this loan, and how do you get it as quickly as possible? So advocacy is what we're going to help. And I've helped do this a lot for veterans on getting veterans benefits, and it has been bogged down in bureaucracy, and they often get intimidated and give up. But I fought for them and got them those benefits. Then I'm going to create a small business task force. So we're going to have as many small businesses as possible, the owners, the employees, people that work at these small businesses, about how government can best help. Because the essence of my plan to help small businesses is that government should be helping, not harming small businesses. I would never shut down small businesses ever. If Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, Costco could stay open, then why are we shutting our mom and pop shops down? that is completely unacceptable. It's hypocritical, and it's just wrong. And it's outrageous. And some of my friends here in Chattanooga have gone out of business because of this pandemic. We're also going to be focused on air purification, on HVAC, indoor, to deal with the pandemic. We can hire small businesses to do this. It's not just for now for COVID-19, but it's for the next pandemic. Obviously, I want you to mask up. I want you to socially distance. But think about it, if we can put state-of-the-art air filtration devices in restaurants, in bars, like they have on airplanes, that'll actually kill and neutralize the virus. We need to be thinking long-term about how we're going to stop the next pandemic, and we can hire small businesses to put in these air purification systems. So again, the Small Business Task Force is going to focus on how we can get federal money, state money, and give as much extra city money as possible. Right now, Mayor Burke is spending $1.9 million on a hotel for homeless citizens to live in. And that's great. I want to help our homeless, but we need to follow the money. Is this exactly where the federal COVID money was designed to go? So there's a lot of questions there on how we're spending this. It might have been better if we put some of this money into helping our small businesses more. There's stuff also that we could waive, like the beer licenses. I was talking to a gentleman who right before COVID, I believe paid $5,000 for this beer license. And he's like, man, now I got to close. Well, if he can't open and sell beer, why is the city going to still collect the money for his beer license? We need to use common sense. I'm a big common sense guy. This is what's kept me alive working in combat zones all over the world. We have to have common sense, and we have to govern with empathy. And that's a main difference, I think, between myself and other candidates, is that I'm going to actually stop overdevelopment and greedy people and put people first, put people over profit, and put humanity over greed.
Well, as it relates to the recovery, we need to look at our small businesses, because we've lost so many of them during this pandemic, and those that are still in existence or have some challenging times. So we would make commitments through public, private, and philanthropic partnerships to keep providing resources, keep attracting resources to make sure that those small businesses continue to thrive, but then at the same time to recapture those that we lost, to look at developing new businesses. And with the anticipation of the next round of COVID relief funding, I would make sure that those businesses have that opportunity to take advantage of that. It's really going to be about how we grow our small businesses. And through community revitalization, that'll be just another phase to make sure that those citizens who are struggling with paying their rent, their utilities, and their just everyday accessibility, their everyday things they need to survive, get the support they need also. So we will work, my team and I, we will work extremely hard to make sure that there's resources out here to make sure those small businesses and family continue to thrive.
I've seen firsthand going out in the community how many of those businesses are hurting, and they are hanging on if they're lucky enough to hang on. I mean, businesses that invested their 401k and have been part of their community. So we prepare to have an Office of Small Business Support that actually goes and finds out what the resources are and what the businesses need, and be more proactive going out into the community to provide and identify those resources. What we're hearing out in the neighborhoods is that they're doing everything they can to keep their doors open, and for them to have to navigate how do they apply for grants, what grants are available. It's an extra burden they just don't have the personnel to do. So the Office of Small Business Support would be one under my administration, that we would have people out in the community helping identify resources and bring additional resources to those businesses. So we have a lot of different groups doing great work, but there's not a one-stop shop, and we want to be able to provide that.
I'm not sure what the city could do. I will say that, in my previous position, we had a financial statement with about 150 lines on it, but every one of those boxes exploded into another 20 or 50 lines, so that the composite was 400 pages long, and there were 2,000 lines of data. So as an outsider, I really haven't seen anything but that financial statement, and that's kind of the thing that's available. I've made multiple calls down there. I've tried to reach out with the people in charge. But I understand we do have a COVID thing. The government's been opened and closed, people working from home. So I really have not been able to see the full exposure. And I was sharing that with someone last night, and they said, that kind of surprised us. You're running for mayor and you can't even get access to it. Imagine how the taxpayers feel. I will say that it's a time for individual responsibility. I will be the top salesperson for the city, and I will focus on creating jobs. And I think the jobs are out there. You've got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get on with life. We can't continue. You know, my granddaughter is in the 5th grade, and I quizzed her the other day. You know, we've gone through a lot of stuff, no political speech, but I said, do you know what the preamble of the Constitution is? Well, in the 3rd grade, we had to recite it to the teacher to graduate. She'd never even heard of it in the 5th grade. But it basically outlines the government's responsibility to people. And I think it lies just in those few words, you know, establish justice. You'll find me secure neighborhoods through more training for the police department. We've got a plan to create more diversity. And one of the problems the police department has, they've shared with me, is retention. My operation on the last 3-year rolling that I was judged by, we had a 2% retention rate. So we will focus on retention. We're going to ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. I know those of us that know that forget that those are the duties of the government. It's not to provide handouts. They've been handouts going out for a long, long time. And the next year, they want another $1 million out of the city's budget for more handouts.
So I've heard some of the other candidates say they're going to do away with social programs. I think that is so inhumane. At the time of a crisis, you don't get rid of social programs. You don't get rid of programs that help people in times of need. You encourage us to use more programs to help us get through it. We have that the fund, that the rainy day fund. I mean, why not? I mean, if it's not going to get any rainier than what we see now. I mean, what's better? What's a better reason to tap into the rainy day fund than a worldwide crisis? And so we need to tap into that. The other thing, we got almost $1 million in from the government to help with COVID. And I checked some of my friends, none of them got any of the COVID money. And so we've got to make sure that funds that come in from the government is being given to the people that need it and not to corporate. You know, I mean, corporate may need it, but we also have the small businesses that get overlooked all the time. And the middle class does so much to keep this economy going. We cannot allow the middle class to fall, because if it falls, there goes the whole economy. So we've got to be strategic about making sure our small businesses are taken care of, because they employ people. And when they go under, then these people lose their jobs, and then the cycle goes on and on. So I'm going to be intentional about working with small businesses. Also essential about making sure our essential workers are taken care of, our doctors and our dentists, who oftentimes do free work, because now during the pandemic, people just don't have it. So we need to also look at ways that we can assist with the medical doctors and the dentists during this time. And I'm going to be intentional about that as well.
Take the general infrastructure topic first. I think that mayors across the United States have been kicking this can down the road because everyone has been hoping and expecting that Congress would pass an infrastructure bill. But the childish infighting and bickering has been so severe in Washington that the two sides have never been able to agree on an infrastructure budget. So I've got my fingers crossed, and I believe that finally, with the Biden administration in the White House and with Democrats in control of both houses of Congress, that we're going to see a pretty massive infrastructure bill passed by this upcoming Congress. That being said, I think that money's going to come to Chattanooga and we'll be able to pave a lot of roads, fix a lot of potholes, and take care of our truly crumbling infrastructure because that's something that we need to do. As a general transportation goal, one of my highest priorities is to give Chattanooga the very best public transportation of any mid-sized city in America. I want to reroute the system. I want CARTA to go places that people actually want it to go. And I want it to be a gem in this crown that is the city of Chattanooga. So, but most of all, I want CARTA to be free. We have huge poverty issues in Chattanooga. And if you're a person who rides CARTA one round trip a day, depending upon how you pay for that trip, if we make CARTA free, we're going to put between $600 and $1,000 directly in your pocket. By making CARTA free, we're going to allow people to have more affordable housing, to access better food, and to have transportation to go job hunting and to get to and from jobs. I think it's ridiculous that there are people who can't live their best lives because they don't have bus fare. That's crazy. So that's an easy fix because revenue from fares only covers 11% of CARTA's operating budget. It's not a heavy lift to make CARTA free. And that's going to be one of my first 100 days top priorities is to accomplish that.
For one thing, there needs to be more routes for CARTA services. For many residents in Chattanooga, they're actually closer to stores in Red Bank than what they are in several parts of Chattanooga, yet there's no buses that go to Red Bank. So I would definitely be looking at adding more transportation, pushing that along. That's the main thing I would think I would be looking at as far as transportation would be concerned, is adding the more of the buses. And I'm glad to see that the city's getting away from requiring the emissions control testing because that was very hard on the poor in our community. Yeah, so. But that being said, I am big on environmental conservation. I would want to continue recycling and that sort of thing.
The first goal of mine would be to make sure the city is enforcing and complying by the EPA consent decree that we're locked under that deals with our sewage transportation. We have a sewage system that is becoming dilapidated, and we've had money put aside to fix these problems, and we've received money from the state revolving funds to fix these problems, but we hardly see any work come out of it. A lot of the work that we do see is relining, and a lot of times that relining process isn't fixing the problem correctly, and so we still have roads that tend to sink in the center, and all they do is want to patch up or put patches or cover up work. And so what I think the city needs to do, and I know Andy Burke tried to do this by creating CDOT, is creating a department through the Public Works that mainly focuses on just strictly paving all year round and bringing up not only our roads back up to federal regulations and guidelines, because there's federal guidelines and regulations put out for, like, say, road size for trucking and so forth, and just car road size. I think it's 12 feet per lane. And so we need to make sure that we're maintaining these guidelines as well, to make sure that we're falling into being a municipality. So with the paving and that, I would look at maybe reorganizing CDOT, because it's a good concept, but it's obviously not working right. I know a lot of the potholes that get filled is put through 311, and that gets carried out by Public Works Department. So we need to look at having our departments work closer together as well, and start not just doing cover up work, but looking into the future of actually replacing pipes and replacing roads, quit building the roads up and making our problems more compiled, because I believe that's some of the issues that we have, is that we've had these issues compiled for 40 years or longer, and now we're left to clean up the issues. And the funding has been spent to fix these issues, but we don't have nothing to do so. So we have to look at new measures to put in place to tackle these problems.
The city has to come together with other cities and states, sister cities and states, to see how they're doing their transportation and really jump on board. Because for us in Chattanooga, Tennessee, we're building, we're branding, we're expanding more, and there's a lot of tourists here, so the crowd is just congested. But as mayor, I will make sure that we have Carter, number one, make sure the fund is there for Carter to expand their bridge and bring them to the table, as well as other organizations, transportation organizations, to help get people on one side of a town without having to wait 30 minutes on the bus, because the bus is getting ridiculous. And then we have railroad systems. I want to look into how can we open up this railroad system that our tourists is wine and dining on, and see can we get them up and booted, and see how can we get the tourists not only on them to continue to ride, but as well as the citizens, and to alleviate the transportation.
As the city attorney, I literally sat next to, my office was next to the claims department. So people would call in, and I would get the claims analyst would come in and ask me about, well, we had someone who ran over a pothole. They were filing a claim. So I'm very familiar with some of the challenges and issues around potholes. And this is an ongoing issue. This is something that, I can say it's been great to see the council and the mayor add to the paving budget each and every year. That's something that we would continue to do. I know we have a lot of interest, but that's something that we would want to make sure we're supporting. I would say that, this first year may be a bit of a challenge. We want to, again, make sure that people are in their homes. We want to make sure that our small businesses are staying open, to make sure that we're getting people good paying jobs, and that they have access to childcare. So there are a lot of other things we want to make sure we're doing with those basic needs. But we have some ideas about how we want to tackle paving and potholes that we hope to announce really soon as a major project.
Yeah, I've got a lot of comments about our TV ads regarding potholes, and they're meant to be funny, obviously, but it really isn't a joke. I mean, particularly if you live out in the suburban areas of the city, you're not really getting a ton for your tax dollars other than public safety, and parking, paving, and potholes are a big priority for us for that very reason. So we think by renegotiating some contracts and by using some innovative methods, we can actually do more paving this summer than we've done in any summer in the last 20 years. So we look very forward to getting caught up, to fixing a lot of potholes and doing a lot of paving across the city. And we can do that within the current budget.
I would sit down and look at a comprehensive plan. We got some local business people here that have a cost-effective way of doing transportation. It's called personal transportation system, and it's a lightweight scale transportation system that works on a grid on solar, and it's got a lot of promise to it. And then they have the bigger nationwide setup that is spending millions of dollars, called SkyTran. And that's something I would really look at about as far as bringing high speed nonstop from Atlanta to Chattanooga, so we can get our airport on more domestic flights. Just around here, we need more domestic flights. And there would be a good cooperation for Atlanta Airport, because Atlanta Airport can build a little bit bigger, that's no problem, but they can't get any more airspace. So they're having to get a lot of domestic flights coming out from like Charlotte, Birmingham, in Chattanooga. So if we get a high-speed rail system that this thing, SkyTran, provides, would be excellent. And, you know, we can get 4,000 people a day in Chattanooga in direct flights out. So, and then our roads, we need to have those fixed. These potholes around here are ridiculous. And we can put a lot of people to work right there in that department there with Public Works. And so we got to have tradespeople.
As someone who rides the bus, I don't have a car. I see this firsthand. Okay. See, what's going on now is they run on a Saturday only schedule. And what's happening is it cut out a lot of the lines to a lot of the needed areas. So I would like to see the Carter buses return to full schedules and expand those. Okay. So, and also, like, for example, like run the same amount of time 7 days a week, and because they'll cut off early, because I'm a bus driver. So you need a mayor that actually rides the bus and has to, you know, has to deal with this. Like, for example, like if I get off work later in the night and buses have already stopped at 7 o'clock, I can't get home on Sunday night. So we're going to expand bus routes to run as late as possible 7 days a week, so everyone has access to public transit 7 days a week. And we need to go back to regular schedule. We need to even make changes so no bus is cut off on any given day. Okay, we need to go back to that. Also, the drivers want a new bus hub downtown, but as the drivers have explained to me, because I talked to the bus drivers, I talked to passengers, the city will veto whatever the Carter wants, and the developer will get that spot. Well, I'm not going to sell it to developers. So I want to make sure Carter gets a bus hub downtown, because we're standing out in the cold as it is. Also, the bus drivers want to be treated like frontline workers and make sure they get vaccine and testing like the rest of us. Because I work at the hospital, I got my shots because I'm a hospital worker. But the bus drivers need on the front line of this also need that same status. So to protect them. Okay. So there's a lot of things we need to do, and I also want to see as things progress, a 21st century public transit rail system like other cities have, because we're like a century behind with our buses as they are. So being a mayor that rides public transit, I will be an advocate for public transit, as opposed to mayor candidates who don't ride the bus. Okay, it's a forethought, because the buses move people and goods and services more than anything else. And there needs to be safe places to catch the bus, because there are many areas of town that are not pedestrian friendly, nor are they safe to get to the bus or cross the street. So we have to make the city safe for public transit users, and we have to expand the bus routes back to the normal levels and even make improvements beyond that point.
Well, one of my opponents, but she's a friend, Dr. Woods, recommended a toll. I don't believe in a toll. I think it would be extremely unpopular and would be a nuisance. I want to make CARTA better, obviously. We need a lot more stops. We need a better schedule for CARTA. We need to make CARTA cool to where people actually want to use it. But if you get a job, we're going to get a lot of jobs in the electric field, making cars electric for Volkswagen. But there's no stop that actually takes people from where they live to where they work. So if we can have like a green electric van, like a large van that would actually help people if they're going to work, and we can get out there and take them to their jobs. But we need to make way more stops with CARTA. I think that CARTA should be free if people are living below the poverty line. We definitely need to fix our potholes, fix our infrastructure, our bridges, repair it. I want to make our city a little bit more green with regards to bicycles and walking, but I don't agree with the way the bike paths were put in, because I think it jams up traffic. It takes away parking. It's not used a lot. So I do want to put a trolley system in. I think it's going to help tourism, a really trendy, cool trolley system that goes all around Chattanooga. My friend owns the wine train, which is amazing. It's more for entertainment than transportation, but it's a 1926 train that goes all over Chattanooga. And I think that that is just incredible. And we can incorporate more outside the box ideas, like riding historic trains all over Chattanooga and having the trolley system and bringing back that Southern unique charm to our city. But we need to put more money into infrastructure. And I will definitely take that out of the budget. We're going to streamline it, and we're going to find as much money as possible so we can fix our sewer systems that are overflowing, our storm drains, and our roads that are just literally giving people flat tires. I went on a ride along with the Chattanooga Police Department, and the high-speed chase that I was on came to a stop because the guys that were being arrested hit a pothole and it deployed their airbags.
Well, one thing we would do is right now, the infrastructure, particularly paving, is handled by two different departments. I would combine those departments so that paving and street repair are linked together so we can maximize and be more efficient in how we serve that. We would obviously include more funding to that. Since I've been on city council, it has went from like 2 or 3 million to, I believe, almost 8 million. So we're getting there. The best way to do that moving forward is to create a comprehensive plan, a multi-year plan, so that we're on track to catch up while at the same time maintaining the roads that we have. And as we get additional federal dollars for those kind of activities, they would just be value added to what we're already doing. So we're going to do this strategically, and we're going to make sure that the citizens know where they are in the process with the paving. And as far as the transportation is multifaceted for me. And it's really about our sidewalks and our public transportation and how we connect together as neighborhoods. And there will be a strong focus in the budget to make sure that that happens. And by working with Carter to make sure that their routes are accessible to everybody, they go where they need to go. And we're going to look at some funding mechanisms to make sure that fees are drastically reduced so people can be able to afford to get on them. But our team and I would look at how to mostly make that a efficient operation, because Carter has so many, they have several sources of funding. So we want to make sure all of them are connected together to make sure that we get the most of it and citizens can ride without wearing the burden of fees that they cannot afford.
We have a great policy on what we're going to do to actually provide more dollars for infrastructure. We've kicked the can for so long, and if we are going to grow our city, we've got to be prepared to do that. We're looking at a long-term approach for paving, and it is taking a 5-year plan about what needs to be done and identify the roads that will be done first. I know that right now CDOT is doing an analysis of the road conditions. We'll be using that as well. With a lot of the feedback I've gotten as I've been running for mayor, I can tell you I have a whole list of roads that people are calling to say this needs to happen. So we're prepared to put $3 million more in the budget the first year. But we are leaving money on the table right now, not leveraging the funds out of the state. So it's working better with TDOT, making sure we get our fair share. And we do feel confident there will be an infrastructure bill. So it is making sure we're prepared with some shovel-ready jobs and projects that we can jumpstart. And we have plenty of them because we have kicked the can for a long time. Right now, our roads don't reflect the quality of our city. And I'm hearing it from every part of our community. So that is one of my top priorities is infrastructure.
I've studied that a lot too. I don't know that I have an answer for that. I know that we spent a bundle of federal money in 2016, and basically it was thumbs up for the railroad system that would run from Russell Boulevard through the Chattanooga Choo-Choo, through some of those inner city neighborhoods, all the way out to the Enterprise South area. But as I reached out to the director of MARTA, and she spent an hour with me, more forthcoming than anybody I talked to, and she explained that the transportation's out there, it's underused. So I don't know how I would be able to work with her to encourage people to be aware that they have plenty of bus routes, there's plenty of transportation. Now, one thing I came out with originally, and I kidded about it, not kidding, but we're going to create a roads maintenance program so that we're not just filling the potholes right before the elections. But with that said, they've really done it. I mean, I got my neighborhood paved. The road was 60 years old. So, you know, we were jaw dropped as citizens when they came through and started the project. So I think the city's on the right track with that. There's already people in place. The inspector that was out here, he, you know, we talked to everybody about our driveways. I mean, so they're doing a pretty good job already and would continue on that path.
First thing we're going to do is stop all these outside contractors. We got the Public Works Department right here that can be filling up the potholes, you know, helping with infrastructure. All we have to do is train them, and then they're already on the payroll. So why are we paying millions and millions of dollars to people who don't even live and contribute to our economy when we have people here that are working every day, making below livable wages, by the way, and who we need to support so that they can take care of their families better. So Public Works, we need to take a closer look at how we can save funding or money in our budget where we're losing it to outside contractors. That's number one. And then number two, we need to make sure that every employee in the city of Chattanooga receives livable wages. We don't have to wait for now new President Biden to come down with a new minimum wage increase. We already know you can't live on $10 an hour. So if you're working for the city, and I think I did a survey for over a year to determine whether or not $15 an hour would be something that we could live on if we work for the city. And the answer was unanimously yes. And so that's one of the first executive orders, if I can do that, that I would submit or put before the city council, is to make sure people are living on wages that are livable. So that's one thing. And we also need to cut down. I believe the mayor's administration is a little bit big, and we have people doing double duties. If we can combine some of the things that that we're paying people for and cut down a little bit, I think that would also save some funding where we can put it in other areas like infrastructure, early childhood education, all of these other programs that are suffering right now that put people first. So we're going to do the things that put people first, because right now we're all struggling and we're all on the ship together. So if we get a leak in the boat, all of us are going to go down. So we have to make sure that we're being equitable and fair with the way the city handles business, with the way we spend money in the city, who we're reaching to, and making sure we clean up our city and make it better for everybody, or at least give the opportunity. So we have a lot of issues there that fall under that category, but we're going to be working on it. And how we're going to do that, we're going to bring the best and the brightest, the experts in these areas to help us crunch what we need to crunch in order to get the best program ever for all of Chattanooga.